Follow Peter on Twitter or like Peter on Facebook at Peter AM 930. Now, more of the Weekly Wrap with Peter Thiel on News Talk 930 KLUP.
And welcome back to the Weekly Wrap. I am Peter Thiel, and joining us by phone is a gentleman who is going to be a big-time player in Texas politics. All he has to do is win a race coming up here in November. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to George P. Bush. Welcome to the Weekly Wrap, George.
Thank you, Peter, and thanks for the pressure. I'll be working harder because of those expectations.
Well, now, tell me about this. If someone is going to vote for the first time in the state of Texas, because so few people vote in the first place, which is just such a, is so sad, but they're going to vote, what are you exactly running for?
Well, thank you again, Peter, for welcoming me this afternoon to talk about the future of the great state. I've been reaching out to newer voters here in Texas for the last 20 months as a candidate for the Republican nomination and now as the general election nominee to serve the great state. And I talk about the land office and the importance that it has in Austin and guiding the future of the state, but also talk about the importance of getting involved in the political system. I've been working with younger people, whether my time with my uncle or my dad or my grandfather's races, in reaching out to college campuses and universities. We're going to seek to implement that in our campaign. And I'm going to share an optimistic vision that our party presents, that my campaign presents, that I believe is one of opportunity and provides a better future and a better tomorrow than a culture of dependency.
I look at people that are going out and they see what our government's about, George. And by the way, we're on with George P. Bush. He's running for the land office here in the beautiful state of Texas, and they look at a system and they say, I don't mean all that much, and it's such a lie, isn't it?
No, absolutely. Every vote does count. Take it from a member of the Bush family, especially after the 2000 race. I remember having the chance to go to the campus of University of Florida in Gainesville, which is, I believe at the time, the largest state campus to campaign on behalf of my uncle. And I believe it was the day before election where I reminded younger people, and there were at least 10,000 students there, and faculty members and people of the Gainesville community. I said, every single vote is going to count. You hear that every election cycle, but in actuality, in that race, it did make a difference. As it relates to Texas, you look at the primary numbers, you're absolutely right. It's an alarmingly low and nominal percentage of Texans are participating. Now, part of it is because it's not a presidential election year, so the issues that are presented in Austin are not as bright and clear as they are in a presidential cycle. But nonetheless, we're looking at an empty slate of statewide executives that will ensure a brighter tomorrow, ensuring that we build upon the Texas miracle that you and I have built these past few years. And it's not by coincidence, it's because we elect the right leadership in these critical offices.
I look at who we have as people who we have elected in Texas. And I think we've had great governors, the last couple of governors. Obviously, your uncle, I think Rick Perry's been a great governor. I think we're on our way to electing another great governor in Greg Abbott. But I also look at all the other constitutional officers. I think of we've elected great state senators. We've elected great people all the way around in this state. But I also know there's great volunteers, and I know there's great people that put in time, and they help out campaigns, people like your campaign. And for people who don't put in that time, that don't go out and help, how important is that, George?
Well, it's first of all critical for my campaign. I'm just one individual, and what I've learned from my experiences in the political world is you need good friends, you need a good team, and I've been blessed to have a good team around me, and I've been blessed to have some great volunteers. I just had a chance to visit with some really smart college interns that we had this summer that are going back to college campuses throughout the state in time for fall. But what's exciting is seeing the future of our state and the future of our country in their eyes, and looking at the world from their perspective, and looking at what they've contributed in terms of social media, in terms of leveraging new technologies for campaigns like ours to go out and reach newer voters. And that's what excites me. It actually inspires me to look at, get to know volunteers that have not only been part of my effort, but other campaigns running statewide and for the Republican Party, and hearing their concerns about where the direction of our country is heading. And they're not alone. And that's why I think they're joining our cause, because they believe this president has failed our country, and that Texas truly is an exceptional state because of our exceptional people. And that's why the stakes are so huge for this November.
This is George P. Bush. This is the Weekly Wrap. I'm Peter Thiel on News Talk 930 KLUP. And I'm very encouraged because I look at some of the lows of bad ideas and cynical politics and cynical things that I hear from some political leaders in our state and in our nation. And then I hear encouraging things. And George, one of the things I've been impressed with you and some of the other leaders in our state. I look at Greg Abbott, and I'm very impressed with Greg. I'm very impressed with you. I'm very impressed. We have a state senator in our area, Donna Campbell. Again, people that I'm very impressed with, who are encouraging, and they're positive, and they have ideas. What makes what gives the idea that these positive ideas, the non-cynical ideas, to bring people into the system, and why do we have such negative people?
Well, it's funny. I've again, being blessed in my family, I had the chance to ask folks that, including my grandfather, who were around during a different era of politics, and he would share stories of when he was in Congress that, as a conservative, he would make his argument on the House floor, make a case forcefully in front of the American people, and then, but at the end of the day, would have the ability to communicate on a personal level with Tip O'Neill, who is obviously a very liberal Speaker of the House. All this to say that there was an interpersonal discussion and dialogue in an era that is not one in which we currently exist, unfortunately. I think that you can be a conservative, be an ideologue, be strong on the issues, but at the end of the day, you have to govern, and that's an art. It's not a skill. It's not trained. You can't learn. You've just got to go out and do it. I think what makes Texas exceptional is that we've been able to pull that off. We can be strong conservatives. We have strong conservative leadership, but we do work with folks on the other side of the aisle, and we work with folks with a different point of view. We won't get 100% of what we want, and that's typically the case in life in general. But at the same time, we're able to move forward as a state. I think part of it also, final point is just that you'd mentioned Donna Campbell and other members of our Senate and House. What's different about us in Texas is that our legislators live under the laws that we pass, and that's unique. In D.C., there's a culture of dependency, and it's created by folks that depend upon a lifestyle and a career in D.C., whereas in Austin, our state senators and our House reps, they actually have to have a career or a life outside of politics, and I think that's refreshing. I think that's why we're able to come together and close deals for the betterment of our state.
Yeah, I think that's very good, and I think you brought up the other great point. There was a story about Reagan and Tip O'Neill that occasionally they would just get together when they had big arguments going on. They would get together and meet at the White House and maybe exchange an adult beverage or two as they debated the issue, and then they would figure it out. And I certainly have friends I disagree with on political issues, and I know you probably do too. We all should at least have people that we argue with over things. It makes conversations fun, and the idea that our political leaders seem to only don't want to even talk, don't even want to get things done, for the people. Not because I've learned if you get all or nothing, you generally get nothing, and that certainly is what's going on in D.C. But let's get back to you, George P. Bush. How do people get involved? Obviously, we want them to vote George P. Bush in November, but how do they get involved with helping you?
Well, I appreciate the question. I mean, what's exciting about our campaign is that, yes, we do the traditional block walking and phone banking, but there are so many different ways in which we can be a platform for folks to be involved in the political process, whether it's registering new voters in communities that oftentimes you don't find a lot of Republican candidates. We have made, as I mentioned at the outset, made a distinct effort to reach out to younger people. And we have found, based on our own efforts, that Battleground Texas is just about the only other group that's mining data across the state to fully document newer voters that are either turning at 18 or at or near 18, perhaps folks that are moving from California. As you know, a lot of folks are moving here to Texas, but they're not being captured on registration rolls. And so there's a variety of different ways in which folks can be involved. I encourage your listeners to check out my website, George P. for Texas, where you can review all of my endorsements, all of my policy positions, my clear and distinct views on the world and what makes me tick. But also there's a volunteer section where we can get you involved in any part of our state. We have a great presence throughout the state and working with A.G. Abbott and the rest of the ticket, along with the Republican Party of Texas and Steve Ministeri to help keep Texas red.
Well, it should remain red. And this gentleman is named George P. Bush, and I encourage you to vote for him and learn more about him. And you are listening to The Weekly Wrap. My name is Peter Thiel, and this is News Talk 930 KLUP.